I'm Saskia Levy Thompson. I'm a program director at Carnegie Corporation of New York, which is one of the nation's oldest foundations, where for over a century we've been rethinking school so that we're best preparing young people for an increasingly complex future. And for those of you who have been here all morning, I hate to disappoint, I will not be rapping, but we do have 3 incredible districts to talk about the AI policy work that they've been doing. And this is the piece that us educators like to call show and tell. So you're actually gonna see what this looks like in practice. And we have just one new face on the stage right now, which is Tara, who is leading the digital learning and innovation work in New York City. And we are gonna jump right into it. You just heard a bit about all 3 of these districts' why, and the problems that they're seeking to address through their efforts. So we're gonna jump right in and you're gonna show us one of the tools you've developed and talk us through what we're seeing. So let's roll the video.
Okay, so this is our Gen AI teaching assistant homegrown tool on Azure OpenAI. You can see our lovely multi-factor authentication system that everyone in New York City is such a big fan of, to do over and over again. We have 47 districts, about 1,800 schools, and almost 1 million students. So the size and scale of New York City is quite phenomenal. And so with this tool, it's built within our technical ecosystem. We've been doing AI, classical AI in New York City for a long time before Gen AI hit market. And we started with a rapid POC in June last year of what we could do with the technology we owned. And so we had access to Azure OpenAI with Microsoft. And so we just started playing around with what building an intelligent tutor would look like in the classroom. And so we started with Microsoft Teal's Intro to Computer Science curriculum. We learned very quickly that having an open educational resource was critical, and one that also didn't have any intellectual property challenges. So we were lucky once we found this proof of concept, which was built both with teachers and students. About 100 students, 3 teachers in our first POC, asked about 2,000 prompts within a 10-day period. And that was June last year. So we were like, whoa, all right, there's value here. Students want to use it. And it was a very iterative cycle, having students joining us in the design process, which I've heard multiple times has been shared on this stage. And so we chose to focus in on illustrative math, which is an open educational resource too, and really focus in on our challenges with algebra, particularly for our Black and brown students and students with disabilities as well, making sure that everyone in New York City has equitable access to different types of supports that are technology enhanced and teaching and learning led. So we have 2 different versions up here that you just saw. I'm trying to go as quick as this video and still give context. You saw an algebra contained intelligent tutor, which basically only pulls from the illustrative math curriculum. So when we're thinking about equity, and just to bring it back into the EDSAFE AI Alliance and our policy work, we really wanted to ensure that we created an environment, a technical environment, where every student could not only access the tool, but also that the tool itself was not outputting biases that exist in the open large language models. So that's the direction we're going. And we really are just really in the first stage of this. We haven't implemented it at scale by any means. We've done user acceptance testing, and then this is also part of our policy lab work and our considerations with safe use, ethical use, fairness and transparency in tools that we use as well. And so it's been really exciting so far.
Thanks for talking so fast. That's New York City speed. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's very, I'm fluent. So just a quick beat before we go to Melissa. New York City is the largest school district in the country.
Okay.
Obviously, you are potentially a real market maker. Why do this yourself and build it from scratch instead of adopting or adapting something that already existed? What made that necessary?
Well, as our lovely Chancellor Banks has said, this is really just the start of using this technology. And when he came into his appointment as Chancellor, he really is focused in on reimagining the student learning experience and what that means. And so doing that, we can't only rely on external support. We have to, just like we want our students to have agency, we want to build agency as well in the products that we're developing and the tools that we have. And who better to do that than the students, teachers, and community of New York City? So part of our policy lab work and just our work in general in New York City is really focused on that cross-divisional collaboration with students there co-developing with us, so that our products and tools can reflect the community that we're serving.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much. Melissa, I see you have the power. Is that the clicker in your hand? Is that what was happening?
But we have some technical difficulty because these aren't my slides. But I can just talk and not have a problem. Really, El Segundo Unified School District's journey started with our grad profile from 2018. And in that profile, you'll see things like ethics. You'll see things like using digital tools responsibly. And as part of that, we really developed our why, that we needed to prepare our students for the jobs of the future. So as we considered that, I partnered with a thought partner and former superintendent, Eric Burmeister from Solutionary Advisors, and we co-designed a process moving forward to engage the community. So it started with an event in December where we went ahead and kicked off our AI leadership and literacy event. And it was fantastic. Our entire Board of Education was there. Students were there, teachers, community, parents, and it was really well received. And from there, we did 3 town halls. And the town halls really revolved around getting like stakeholder groups together where they answered 3 critical questions. So what is it that really excited them about AI? What was it that worried them? And then certainly, how did they want to see AI used in the schools? And so it was really fascinating to listen to the stakeholders, gather all of that data. All of that data has since been shared with our Board of Education, and they have had a study session. And I don't know how many superintendents are in the room, but you know, board meetings may or may not necessarily be our #1 thing that we love about the job. But this study session was by far my most favorite meeting of all time, over 10 years as superintendent. My board was engaged. My board had thoughtful comments. My board wanted to have our students have the access that they needed in this area. And it was absolutely an amazing gift. And so from there, it was the board's chance to weigh in and give us feedback. So we really looked at purpose, we looked at ethics, we looked at safety, we looked at biases, we really looked at, and then outcomes. How were we going to take a look at these things and incorporate them into a policy? So we've now gathered all of that information, and our next step will be to put together a first draft and then take that to the board. And in California, typically, you know, our board policies are something that, I don't want to say sit on a shelf, but they protect the district, right? They protect us from exposure. They include legal things and whatnot. So we're still going to go forward and put together a policy, even without California School Boards Association telling us how. We're going to put one together, and then we will be revisiting it every 3 months so that it is a living document, because things are moving so quickly in AI. So as things come out with that's legal guidance, we'll take a look at that.
What do you think it was about doing the AI policy work and this kind of process that you engaged in that activated your board differently? Like, why was it this?
Well, I really feel like our community really wants us to stay on the cutting edge, and they want every opportunity for their child, as every single parent does, right? And so what they saw was we are staying current. We are thinking about the future always. And so they feel like they're putting their kids in good hands. And they know that we're leading with safety first. And being part of the EDSAFE Alliance is such a gift because it allows us to have thought partners and talk through things to ensure that we're crossing every T and dotting every I.
That's great. Coming back to a point Erin made in the last
Oh,
panel
here's my
about
slide.
safety. I saw them pop up somewhere in the middle,
all of a
but that's
sudden, there's
okay.
my slide.
They'll
Yeah.
be available for
That's
anybody
okay.
who's interested. But this does come back to a point that Erin just made about safety first in order to then unlock and enable the kind of innovation. So we already have two really different use cases about what it looks like when a district takes this from theory to practice. New York, where we're talking about a specific student-facing tool. El Segundo, where we're talking about sort of the process pieces and engagement pieces behind all of this. And now we're going to have a third version of what this can look like. So Jerry, tell us about Santa Ana.
Yes, thank you. So different culture, different environment, different level of comfort when it comes to having this AI conversation, like a lot of districts across the county, across the state, across the country. I mentioned a little bit about our graduate profile. So this is our North Star, the driver behind the conversations we have. As a result of the months of development and working on this with our community, the conversation went from what we expect our students to know to, okay, how are we going to do it now? And that's where this slide comes in. So about 2.5 years ago, we began to, ChatGPT began to show its surface from the unknown, and curiosity sparked in the district. And at the executive cabinet level, we began to have conversations. And even at the executive cabinet level, there was a little bit of resistance because people didn't know what it was about. They thought it was a fad. And so we spent a lot of time at the executive cabinet level learning more, watching videos, listening to the YouTube, the researchers behind it, what its capacity was. And then we started playing around with it. We started to engage the platform. And then very quickly did my executive cabinet team discover the power and the possibilities of this tool and how it could be used in public education. From that point, they took it to their executive directors. We did it both classified and certificated. We looked at our early adopters and people that were interested in learning more about these platforms. We did not unilaterally roll it out. We just said, if anybody is interested in engaging in these platforms, let us know and we'll provide access and support. But we ask that you play around with it and then you come back and you tell us what you're learning. And so as a result of engaging our executive directors and our classified employees, there was a lot of excitement in there, and they indicated we need to get it to our teachers, the teachers that actually train the teachers. And so we pulled in, and you see on the screen their class, Future Ready, and then our parents. I'll get to the parents part right now, but our class and Future Ready teachers are the teachers that actually do the staff development. We didn't unilaterally implement it, but we have some early adopters in those areas. They raised their hand and said, we want to know more. So we started to open access, give access to them, and they started to experiment with it to the point where they said, okay, now we need to get it in front of the teachers because this stuff is really good. And so we were able to have them get it in front of the teachers. At the same time, the class teachers and the Future Ready teachers said, we need to share with our parents too, because they can help learn this so they can help their students with their homework as the students go home. Long story short is, at the end of that cycle, enough teachers in the district were using it to where the class and the Future Ready staff came back and said, okay, we need to pull an advisory council together. And an advisory council, actually, let me go to this. So this is how we, as a result of this slide, the exploration, we tried to rationalize how we were approaching the use of AI in the district. And I got this slide from Keisha Ray, my friend Keisha Ray, and it's a value proposition. So we're looking at it from an operational standpoint for operational efficiency. We're looking at it as an enhance and to assist in our decision-making process at the leadership level. And then the other area is the integration between teaching and learning, what happens in the classroom. As a result of that, an AI advisory committee was formed, about 60 teachers, 60 district stakeholders, certificated and classified. Mainly those teachers that were the early adopters came together, and we had a conversation about establishing an AI policy. And so some of the questions that we asked was, who's using it? How are you using it? And what are you using it for? What are your hopes? What are your fears? And compiled all of that information and then began to take our teachers through a structured AI boot camp that provided a little bit more technical training instead of just the experimenting. It was a more focused training. And then as a result of that, each of these 4 boxes, teaching and learning, the AI Catalyst Collective and the infrastructure team are taking that diagram and rolling it out in those white boxes there. And then it's the improvement cycle just repeating itself over and over again. And so this is the process that we're currently in right now, without a policy. And so what this led us, and this is in real time, my assistant superintendent ed services is going to kill me if she's here, but this is her thought on the paper. And what I really like about this is this is the way these slides started, with thoughts on a paper. But as the teams are coming together, having conversations, their thoughts are put down on a piece of paper. And now we're in the process of rolling this part out. And this is where it becomes unilateral, the unilateral implementation. In Santa Ana, we're not forcing it on anybody because we know there's still a lot of fear out there. But because of the way we rolled it out and because of the teachers in the classroom and the class teachers that are doing the training have such credibility with the mainstream teaching population, it is a much easier rollout than it would have been if we just unilaterally implemented it. And those conversations have led to our draft policy, which we're going to, not policy, guidance, which is right here, that is reflective of our graduate profile that will be on the April 23rd agenda for the board to approve.
Great.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much. I don't know the answer to Melissa's question about how many superintendents are here, but I know there are educators here, because it's always the educators at the tech conference, Jerry, during your slides, that are taking pictures of the slides. Those are my people. So when we were backstage, Jerry, you were saying we're just rolling it out right now. So we're learning a lot about what we talked about and what we ideated, and now how it's going to go as we move from the early adopters and the folks who raised their hands to making this something that is available to everybody in the district. I'm wondering if I can ask the other panelists to talk about where they are in your sort of rollout and implementation timeline and what you're learning. Am I hitting myself? What you're learning as you go. So Melissa, can I start with you? Sure. And do you want to, if there's any critical slides that you want to try to pull up?
It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. So really with one of the pieces I didn't talk about was our work with our teachers. So we have put together an AI advisory committee, and it was a committee where we specifically had teachers apply. We didn't just say, oh, please, principal, give me 2 people. We said, we need the best and the brightest. We need the early adopters. We need people who really want to feel some disequilibrium and be vulnerable, right? And so we've put together a team of about 14 teachers and our administrators. They are taking a deep dive in this area. And so we too have an informal guidance that we put together, and we're using the acronym LEARN, because not only are the students learning, teachers are learning too. So for us, L is literacy, because we're all becoming more literate. E is ethics, A is adherence, so it goes along that line, and we're in the almost final iteration. We're not quite there yet. We're just polishing it up a little bit more, but our teachers weighed in again just on Thursday, and we're excited about having that informal framework that is a quick and easy reminder. Because when we think of adherence, we're thinking of FERPA and COPA, right? We can't have people going off the rails and being irresponsible. And so that's why adherence was really a word that resonated with us. And then on the policy side of things, we're really just drafting. And then the way I look at it is we will put together an administrative regulation. And I don't care if it's perfect or not. But we will put it on the board agenda every 3 months so that we can continue to see what is out there from the federal, the state levels that we need to look at, from legal levels, from council. But even council at this point have very minimal guidance as it relates to this. And as superintendents, we live and die by board policy and administrative regulation. So I'd rather put something in place that we can lean in on and correct. But this is not the way policy runs for superintendents. And I know I was at a networking meeting with other superintendents, and they said, well, the policy, we just want to leave it there and not have to worry about it again. We've got policies that haven't been updated since 2015 because no new legal things have occurred in that area. And that's okay. but that's not going to be the case with AI. We need to shift our lens.
Melissa, you can't see, but Jerry's like trying to jump into
Wow.
the double dutch behind
Melissa
you.
and I had a conversation. We've been doing this a long time. We've been superintendents for
Yes.
a long time.
Long time.
And I think the decisions we make today are a lot different than the decisions we would have made our first 5 years as superintendent.
Yes.
So there's some liberty in the decisions and the risks that we take because we are closer to retirement or the end of our career. But it's also important equity-wise that if your district is not having these conversations, that teachers, as best as they can do, go to their site administrators and have conversations with those site administrators, and then encourage the administrators in the district to really go to their assistant supervisor, because sometimes it has to come from the bottom up. And I think those organizations, that the early adopters, are the ones that are listening a little bit better than some of the others because of the political environment and the challenges that we exist in the country. And so in some environments, people are more willing to take risks than in others. But because we have good integrity,
Yes.
we want to be, as much as we can, good examples of organizations that people can look to say, wow, if they did it in these communities, why can't we do it?
I just want to come back. Melissa said something about this isn't usually how districts work. This isn't how boards work. And the AI policy work really requires that you're doing a lot of iterative work real time. Can either of you speak to how you've sort of built the trust and the mindsets across your community to understand that we're leaning in, we're pushing this out hard, and it's probably going to change because we're learning as we go? Do you have any tips?
Well, for us, we use the research behind the World Economic Forum, the Future Jobs Report, the Future Skills, and we're tapping into our industry experts. So we belong to a workforce investment board. They're demanding AI pathways, and so rather than the conversation be sparked and initiated by the district, we're asking them to be a part of these conversations. And so as they're asking for us to create pathways of jobs of the future, AI is embedded into a lot of those conversations. So when we go out to the public, or when we have public presentations or engaging in our community, we're talking and using the workforce as leverage to say, if you want to make your child or your student competitive in this global market, it's no longer a regional or local market, it's a global market, then we need to make sure that they have access to these resources. Yep. Because things are going to happen so quickly that we could get left behind. And I'm not just talking about district, I'm talking about the country. The interesting part of the conversation that's happening to me now is because we've been engaged in this conversation, I wouldn't even say unilaterally, but just we've been actively engaged. I get teachers pushing back saying, but everybody should be doing this, because why should those kids that in those classrooms that aren't engaged in it, why should they suffer? And that's a hard question and a hard position for a superintendent to be in right now, because we got to this point by allowing it to be early adopters. Well, now I'm getting a little bit of pushback saying, no, we need to do it all the way because it's an equity issue. And I don't have an answer for that question.
Yeah.
I want to come back to you, Tara, and I want to merge the last two questions. One about sort of where you are in the timeline and implementation, and one prompted by what Jerry just shared, which is that New York City, in some ways, you said in your presentation, we're just at the beginning of some of this and we're going to learn a lot as we go. And New York City has been doing a lot of work on this for a very, very long time. And so how is it that you're approaching the AI policy work now that really engenders this kind of learning orientation, where you can make big moves and take big risks, and the expectation is going to be that you learn as you go?
Excellent. So I'm glad to hear that we're going in the right direction, first of all, to honor you both and your body of work. So in New York City, we really have taken a long time with AI. We have a program called Computer Science for All, which has been a 10-year program. It's still like leading really our AI work on the pedagogical side in certain areas. And Christy Crawford is one of our staff. She's done AI and Equity Institutes for the past 2 years, has worked with Joy Bulamwani. Like, we are really embedded in that space. And we also have an amazing program for future readiness, called Future Ready NYC, and a very strong CTE program citywide. And so we're focused too on that backwards design from a pedagogical lens, but a real world lens of our students have to be future ready. And also we don't want to exacerbate existing inequities that exist in New York City. So our policy lab work, aside from the name, is really looking at what policies we have, what we own, what exists, and how are we serving our community with that right now. And then moving forward, looking and exploring what those collaborative opportunities are to strengthen our system, to ensure we are raising up also, what our L students need, our multilingual learners, what our students with disabilities need, and how these tools as well for the developers in the room reflect every student and every community. So when you're building a tool, you have to have language in there. You have to have an accessible screen reader for our students who are using assistive technology. All those considerations are what we need to consider and do consider in New York City, which is why I'm sharing that we're really at the start, because we're not going to just move forward without ensuring that all of our students and communities are involved.
Thank you for that. So powerful. So this panel has been a lesson for all of us. I think I didn't expect it to quite land here, but how essential the districts and district leadership are going to be in reaching teachers as users, who are ultimately going to be the ones who shape the extent to which young people are experiencing technology as a core part of their learning, not as something that is an add-on or happening alongside. I wonder, with teachers in mind, Jerry made it sound like this was a farewell tour, which I know it's not. We have no moles in the audience, no. But share a big learning, something that when you think about, you said you wouldn't have done this the same way as when you started however many years ago, about what it takes to really engage teachers in this work so that they are leading it and they become the carriers in the way that Melissa described. Can you all just talk about how you think about teachers through a user lens?
I think this whole notion of the human factor, you need to lead with the human factor will always be present. And we need you, the teacher, now more than ever, because the technology is the technology. The technology is not the artist. The technology is not the craftsman. The technology doesn't put it together. It's a tool, right? And so we have to keep the teachers reassured that they matter and that the human factor in a classroom and the relationship between a student and a teacher is what will continue to drive the work. To hear a special ed teacher talk about how they're using it as a tool to bring a text passage to a reading level that the student is at, to give the student a brainstorm on a particular topic so that they're just not hitting a wall and sitting in class for 20 minutes just doodling because they can't get started. This is an amazing tool when used responsibly and with purpose, right? And so it's exciting, but lead with the human factor for our teachers, and our teachers will come along when they see that this can make them more efficient and ease the burden of the work that they do.
Oh man, that was a mic drop. Good luck, Jerry.
Ditto what Melissa said, but for me, it's to maintain relevancy, right? So because I've been doing this a long time, my experiences are different from the newer generation of teachers and educators. And so I value what I call reverse mentors, younger professionals in the industry that have their finger on the pulse of emerging trends. And there are a few of them here today that I got to see. I follow them on social media and I got to meet them in person today. But that's where I stay grounded, and I do my best to try and engage with these professionals because I want to know what those emerging trends are so I can make better decisions at the governance level. I can better inform my board. I can better inform my executive cabinet, because it's not about the decisions that are good for me, but it's about decisions that are better for the next generation. And I think that's my motivation. I'm not worried about the kids or the teachers. I'm worried about the leaders in the system who are afraid to make decisions or take risks and engage in this new environment because of the fear that is created at the superintendent level or the governance level. it breaks my heart, which is why, you know, I love to be around in spaces like this, because we want to, not that we're doing anything right or we're experts, but it can be done. And there's three examples of educational institutions that are moving forward. I wouldn't even say have done it, but moving forward, because we're still learning.
Yes.
Tara, we get to end with you. You're going to talk about New York City, where you and I were both teachers. So
Yes.
what is this unlocking for a teacher in New York?
So we're all lead learners, right? When
Yes.
it comes down to it, we're all learners. And AI gives us the chance to inspire that or re-inspire every learner in what's possible. I heard earlier, maybe you said it backstage, reimagine the unimaginable. I love that. And so it's really also helping whoever your user is see themselves and see the value proposition in whatever tool or experience is in front of them. And so that's what we're driving towards in New York City, is allowing the tools and the experiences that are human-centered, human-designed, to be reflected in who the person is and what the purpose is behind it. And so I think, you know, collectively, we're all on that path. And no one is an expert in AI. No one is a generative AI expert. So I think if we just go with that in mind, we're all learners together. We'll all move forward collectively and transform education.
Well, thank you all so much. We are going to leave it there. We're going to throw a slide up with a QR code if folks want to learn more about the work that these districts are doing. Thank you for participating in the AI Policy Labs and for being so transparent on your journeys. It's going to activate the same kind of path for many, many others. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.